All right, welcome back. We did the SEC preview yesterday, getting ready for opening day today. College baseball starting up, Valentine's Day. A lot of fun stuff going on. Really thought the SEC podcast was good. I'm Barstool Mintzy, joined by Peyton Chatagnier, Tyler Moody producing. Gotten some good feedback so far from the SEC one, but Peyton, I know you played in the SEC and the Big 12. All these SEC people sometimes forget that there are other good leagues around the country, and we got to remind everyone that today we're about to dive into the ACC. And, man, this is a hell of a baseball league. There's a lot of talent. Last year, 4 Omaha teams from the ACC and SEC, and it looks to be a really strong league again this year. 5 or 6 teams possibly in the top 15. And the ACC deserves its due, and we're here to give it to them. How are you doing?
I think the ACC is a really good conference this year. I actually have Virginia ranked number 1 in my own polls. So I think maybe a little bit top heavy in this conference, and then it kind of falls off towards the end of it. But the ACC is no joke in baseball.
Yeah, no, it isn't. And then we got some really big traditional powers. We'll start right at the top with the Virginia Cavaliers, who, man, it feels like they're in Omaha every year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like they haven't done as well in Omaha recently. They've been 2 and out the last couple of years, but they're always there. And, this year looks no different. They got to replace, an All-American shortstop. But, man, this lineup, like 1 through 8, has just so much power. They might be literally them and Texas A&M are the best hitting teams in the country. And they also have got a good ace pitcher and a solid number 2. And it's kind of hard to really see a scenario where they're not one of the best teams in the country.
I think they are. They're returning a bunch of guys who put up really good numbers last year. They got an impressive pitching staff. They've got good position players. A couple key guys that they're going to miss, but overall, man, I'm really bullish on Virginia.
Yeah, looking at some of their roster, some guys to mention to keep an eye on. Henry Ford was a freshman last year, played first base. He hit 17 homers as a freshman. Looks like he could break out in a super, super big way. But, you look through this roster. I'm looking right now. Jacob Ferentz, the catcher, hit 350 last year. Their second baseman, Henry Godbout, hit 372. They've got a loaded, their shortstop, Eric Becker, hit 362. The Harrison Diddlewick, the center fielder, has a ton of power and potential. This thing ain't no joke. This lineup is super serious. But then they also have a really good ace and left-handed pitcher, Evan Blanco, and Jay Woolfolk, who, really kind of endeared himself in Omaha, a real battler, solid number 2 pitcher, and they got some bullpen arms. So it's kind of one of those teams where, they got to replace an All-American shortstop, but, I'm not seeing a lot of holes here.
Me either. And I don't think people are sleeping on Virginia, but I don't know if they quite understand how good of a program this has been the past couple of years. They're consistently a postseason team. They've made it to Omaha a bunch of times. I think they're going to be really good. And you look at Diddlewick's numbers; he had 23 homers last year. Like, this team can mash. So,
yeah, no. So I got them at the top of the ACC as well. You have them number 1 in the country. I think they're definitely top 3. I think you can book them in there with like A&M and some of these other top SEC teams. I don't see any reason not to. And you give them their coach O'Connor's been doing it for a lot of years too. They're traditional power. So I've got them picked to win the ACC as well. My number 2 team in the ACC, who also I'm really high on, are the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Yep.
They got to replace Vance Honeycutt, who might have been the best player they've ever had. But I don't see why they're not going to be able to. And you look at this team, they got an ace in Decaro, who was young last year but showed really well in Omaha. They got a stud number 2 pitcher as well. And so much of college football, Folger, I guess Boaz, lefty, I nailed it. But they're super excited about him. And then you look at this team, they've got studs everywhere. And that Gavin Gallagher, the third baseman, freshman, kind of showed well at the bottom of the order. He's good. The shortstop, Alex Madera, is good. Luke Stevenson at catcher's really, really good. There's they're kind of another team where you really, I don't think they've got the power Virginia does, because nobody really does. But I don't see a lot of holes on this roster either.
Same thing. Losing Honeycutt sucks, but supposedly they got somebody that's going to come in there and replace him, do really well. This is a team that made a good push last year. I think they maybe turned some heads, surprised some people. I, again, think they're going to be really good too, yeah.
Yeah, they look like an Omaha team. The guys replacing Honeycutt in center field, Kane Kepley, Liberty transfer, hit 330 last year with a 480 on base percentage. So
we'll see how that plays in the ACC, but he's got a ton of potential.
Well, so my thoughts too, like I look at Virginia, North Carolina, I think Omaha teams, top teams. I think there's a little drop. Like the next, I mean, there's 5 more really good ACC teams, but I think they're the two that are elite.
That's kind of what I mean. It's top heavy and it kind of falls off. But I mean, even some of these other schools, I think Florida State's gonna be really good when we get to
that jumps into Florida State.
Yeah.
I love Link Jarrett, their coach. Got Notre Dame to the College World Series a couple years ago, slayed the Dragon of Tennessee, that great Tennessee team in 2022 in Knoxville, and had a rebuilding year, his first year at Florida State, and they were like 100-1 to win the title before last year. And man, they made a huge run in Omaha, and they've got what many people feel number one pitcher this year, Jamie Arnold.
Yeah.
Lefty, throws high 90s, projected top 3 pick in the draft. It's always good to have a start with that. The only thing about them is, man, they lost so much power out of that lineup. I mean, they had a lot of top picks that are no longer there. Still got some guys there, but I don't think his offense is going to be near what it was last year. I like Max Williams, the center fielder. He's got some power. Jackson West, solid catcher. Drew Frode at second base looks good, but Lee Jarrett's even said that he knows they're not going to have the power they did last year. But with Jamie Arnold, you got to feel really good when you got that stout ace. And I also think just Link Jarrett gets the benefit of the doubt. He's an elite coach.
Yeah, I'd say book them to win most Fridays. We'll see how the bullpen ends up shaking out. Maybe that's where they could run into some trouble. But I think Florida State is kind of like, yeah, they can rely on the long ball. But if they can find a way to scratch runs and just like it seems like, especially on Fridays, they're able to win games 3-2, 4-3, something like that. And that'd be really beneficial for them.
Yeah, if they could have, and it's so interesting in college baseball because there's so many transfers now.
Yep.
I mean, all these top teams have transfers that have potential to emerge in the lineup, and they just need some guys to step up and hit some bombs. Because you kind of mentioned it in the SEC preview, college baseball is a power sport now, and if you can't hit home runs, it's hard to win just playing small ball.
Yeah, exactly right.
But yeah, I had Florida State 3. Next up, I kind of got all the rest of these teams put together. My number 4 team, though, I actually have Clemson ranked ahead of the rest of these teams. A lot of that has to do with their head coach, Eric Bakich. I think he's super elite. He almost won the national title at Michigan. I mean, good God. Got Michigan to the finals in 2019, lost to Vandy. And then, you look at the Clemson team. I know they hadn't made Omaha in a long time, but last year they were number 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. They lost a heartbreaking super regional to Florida. And I freaking I think Cam Cantarello, their center fielder, is one of the best players in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also got Aiden Ack, a super stud ace. And, you got a stud ace, you got one of the best players in the country, and you got an elite coach. You got a hell of a start, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think he instills like a fun atmosphere. They look like they have a fun time. They're bouncing around, they're flying around, they're doing banana ball stuff in the fall. It seems like the program's in the right direction, no doubt.
Yeah, and so I think they're going to be really, they lost some stuff from last year because who didn't? But
yeah, exactly.
I feel like I give them the benefit of the doubt over these other teams that I'm about.
I kind of said that in the SEC preview. Like, it's so hard to know with these transfers. We could look so stupid in 2 months from now. Like, there's going to be guys that emerge, and there's going to be guys that we think are supposed to be top guys, and they end up just not. It just happens, and especially in college baseball, so many people transferring and moving around.
All right, there's 3 more top 15 ranked teams to touch on that I've kind of got all kind of put up together because it's hard to read.
Yeah.
The first one we're talking about the Duke Blue Devils, and you never think Duke college baseball, but man, they had a damn good program. They won the ACC tournament last year. They kind of crapped out in that Oklahoma regional. They might have gassed their pitching out in that ACC tournament run. Chris Pollard's done a phenomenal job. He's been there 12 years, and this is a team that can freaking hit. I mean, they got some dudes that got some power. Ben Miller, their third baseman, at 360 last year. They had a Ben Rounds, left fielder, at 403. AJ Garcia, their right fielder, has a lot of power. Hit 305, but he's an emerging sophomore. I mean, they got the dudes that can really hit. Andrew Healy, lefty, looks like a solid Friday night guy. I mean, I think this is going to be another top 15, top 20 team. A lot of people think they got screwed and should have hosted a regional last year, and they ended up getting the 2 and getting sent to Oklahoma. But I mean, I think they're going to be really solid again. I don't know that they're quite like an Omaha team, but I got to put a lot of respect on their program.
Yeah, you'd mentioned all those players. I'm not going to go through them all, but they got dudes that can mash, and that's kind of what Duke has relied on, is their long ball and producing a ton of runs. say with majority of these teams, it's going to come down to the pitching. It's going to, if they can figure out a weekend rotation, they'll be good. And like, it's not to say that Duke can't win the ACC. I just don't think they have the pitching staff to do it yet.
Yeah, like I said, I just think Virginia, I've got Virginia 1 and Carolina 2, but I really think both those two teams are, kind of ahead of these other bunches. Florida State, if they got some hitters that emerge, maybe. But
yeah.
All right, the next two teams I want to talk about are very interesting because they lost so much.
Mm-hmm.
Wake Forest, Tom Walter's done. I mean, a team that they were number 1 preseason last year. They were the year before almost made the finals, lost in that heartbreaking Tommy White home run to LSU. They've built something that's incredible. He's got that pitching academy thing going there. But when I look at this team, they've had a great last few years. But, man, they've lost like 3 top 10 picks. And, I know their program is really good and on the right stretch and all that stuff. But, man, I wonder when you lose the amount of star power they lost, I'm a little worried they might take a step back this year.
Yeah, big question mark on them. Like you mentioned, that pitching lab has been huge for them, though. They got some good hitters as well. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say I'm bullish on Wake Forest, but the program itself is in the right direction. And they found ways to win. They've got guys that are high draft picks. Of course, they lose Burns, which is huge for them. We'll see. This is one of those teams we'll find out real quick if they're ranked where they should be or not.
Yeah, the 2 stud hitters, Merrick Houston, the shortstop, and their center fielder, Ethan Conrad, are awesome. Pitching staff is, it's kind of one of those things. They got guys that have a lot of potential, but nobody super proven yet. And so, it's one of those things. It's like college baseball to me, maybe the hardest sport to judge preseason because of the transfers and the turnover. And there's all these teams have guys that have like such huge upside, but like until they prove it, it's like really hard to prove.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about in the next couple of weeks. We'll really find out how good they are.
And the final team that made Omaha last year from the ACC, who really have got like kind of a big following in Barstool from when they got screwed in 2021 with the COVID thing, are the NC State Wolfpack. They got super hot down the stretch last year, won at Georgia in the Super Regional. I actually had a huge future bet on them, 35-1. To win the title going into the tournament. They took me on a fun ride. They got their hearts broken by Kentucky in that their first Omaha game and never could recover. But I like Elliott Avent. He's a good dude. When I look at this team, great bullpen. I mean, they got a 1-2 combo in the bullpen that if they can get the game to the 6th inning, this thing's freaking over. That's how good Derek Smith and Dudak are on the back end. And they're excited about Dom Fritton, their ace, but he had a 7.64 ERA last year. I know he's got upside, but anytime I see that still concerns me. But they lost most of their hitting. I mean, they lost a lot of guys off that lineup, and that kind of concerns me about this team a little bit.
Yeah, and it's tough because they don't have the highest named new transfers or anything like that. Another team where they kind of caught people by surprise the past couple of years, and the program's turning around. I wouldn't be surprised, maybe not this year, but in the next 2 years, like this is another Omaha caliber team.
Yeah, no, I agree, but this one looks like a rebuild a little bit
sure
this year. And you look at like NC State, like they've had some good teams. They made Omaha 2 of the last 4 years. They actually were the team that missed out when Ole Miss snuck in 2022. Yeah. They were the first one out. I think they're going to make the NCAA tournament, but I don't think they're going to be anything past that. And then we're going to run through the rest of the ACC real quick. I want to talk about Louisville. Dan McDonald, old Mike Bianco assistant back in the day at Ole Miss. Last year, barely, they were like one of the first teams out of the tournament, really because they had a bad RPI and played a week on conference schedule. So this year they're like, well, we're going to do the opposite. They're in the huge Arlington tourney to start the year. They got they got the hardest schedule in the entire ACC, but they really like their pitching staff this year. They could be pretty good. That Patrick Forbes, their ace, they're super excited about. He's rated as the top 10 draft prospect out of the ACC. They've got 2 other guys, Parker Detmans and Brandon Cutts, they're excited about. And, I think this is going to be a tournament team. I really do. Louisville, you look at that Dan McDonald here, I mean, they usually are. They kind of get the benefit of the doubt with me.
Yeah, very similar to Mike Bianco. I mean, he's almost carbon copy of Bianco. He was under him for a couple years. This is a program that is historically pretty good, and I would say it's probably more pitcher heavy than it is hitter this year. So the bullpen, that's good to have. This might be another team where it's like if you can win 5-4, 4-3, something like that, they could make a run too. I don't exactly know how good they're going to be this year.
Their number 3 starter Cuts was the Missouri Valley Pitcher of the Year for Indiana State last year, and so if he's their number 3, I mean, I think they might have 3 strong starters. They're part of the Arlington tournament this weekend, so we'll get to see.
Well, I think you have to do that. Like if you're not in the SEC and if you're not the highest ranked in the ACC, you have to have a strong strength of schedule. Like RPI is so huge, and there's so many different things that go into it, but strength of schedule is like the biggest part of it. So you kind of have to do that just to put your name back on the map.
Yeah, and the number 1 star I got on offense, Zion Rose, young outfielder at 380 last year.
Yeah.
Super emergent. I think Louisville's a tournament team, and I think they're going to be pretty good. All right. Very interesting to see Stanford and Cal in the ACC.
Yeah.
And that is a lot.
Super weird.
This shit still rubs me.
You know, that's going to be my biggest concern with them is like how do they not necessarily the competition within ACC, but these guys are going to have to leave on a Tuesday to play a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. Like what's going to happen then? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, Stanford, one of the blue bloods in college baseball, and they fell so hard last year. Went 11-19 in the Pac-12, but made Omaha the 2 years in a row before that. And what's fascinating about them is they've got maybe the most famous freshman recruit ever.
Yep.
And Sasaki, he's like 285, 6'1", power hitter out of Japan. Broke Shohei Ohtani's high school home run record in Japan. Going to be a lot of pressure on him, but man, they're going to be fascinating to watch.
He will be so much fun to watch. I've seen some highlights of him. He looks electric. I hope he hits 30 home runs this year.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think he's going to develop a cult following. The thing about them, though, they have a lot of young talent. They were just so young last year.
Yeah.
But they've got Matt Scott, their Friday night guy, supposed to be one of the best pitchers in the ACC. And, obviously that's a huge thing, as we always mention, having that ace. And they've got a solid number 2 in Volko. My thing with them, though, new life, new conference, all the traveling. I think their ceiling is sneaking into the NCAA tournament. But
I agree. But this is also still a team. Like this is Stanford, who was in the World Series 2 years ago and 3 years ago. I don't expect them to be this far down in the ACC for that long.
I feel like gamble-wise, there's going to be some opportunity with them both ways.
Yes.
I think you go against them when they travel. But, man, I think when teams have to travel all the way out there,
absolutely,
especially if they're having to play late-night games on a different time zone, I think there could be some value taking Stanford at home.
Yeah.
I think look for them to have crazy home road splits. Next up, Georgia Tech, who always can mash. I mean, this team every year, they can just freaking hit. And Burris, the outfielder, he's a projected ACC preseason player of the year. Drew Burris, he's back. They've got a loaded offense. I mean, they can hit top to bottom. I don't know if they can pitch, though.
Yeah, we'll see. You're right. They can mash, but Burris is really going to have to kind of just carry this team from everything that I've seen, and he has every capability of doing that so far. A guy's a stud coming off his freshman year, so we'll see.
Yeah, last year they fell in the regional final to Georgia. I think they could be a tournament team again. I think I'll be looking to bet overs in Georgia Tech games this year is kind of my logic. And that's kind of most of that's the line of NCAA tournament teams. Next up, like Virginia Tech, man, I remember 2 years ago, and they were a national seed. This team can hit. Once again, they got a lot of firepower hitting, but another team I got questions about the pitching.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The main thing, they did get an Ole Miss transfer, Jordan Vera, who hopefully can get in there and make some big steps for them. But for the most part, it's going to rely on the pitching for them. How can they handle the ACC's star hitting power against their pitching? I'm just not sure on that.
Well, they have Ben Watson back for 6th year. He was the ACC batting champion last year at like 420, and they've got a catcher in Henry Cook, a good first baseman, good third baseman, and DH. I mean, they can freaking mash.
Yeah.
So I think they're another team like gambling wise on DraftKings. I'm gonna be looking at some overs, but they've got one good pitcher in Renfro, but that's it. So that's always concerning when you don't have any pitching depth.
And it seems like that's what we always come down to is like a lot of these teams can hit, but can they get the staff going too?
Yeah. Don't have a ton to say now. The rest of these teams will probably get through pretty quick. Pittsburgh, kind of a gritty team. They kind of don't have the budget for college baseball, and then they play in the North, which is tough because they have to travel a lot early, and they don't really have like elite power hitting, but they fight hard. I mean, I give Mike Bell, their head coach, credit because it seems like they battle, but I mean, I don't have any.
Yeah,
I don't
never great. Never great when the one thing you have to say is, "Hey, they fight hard." This is a team, and really the rest of these, that's just going to come down to like they just don't have the budget to keep up with some of these bigger schools. They don't have the NIL money.
Yeah, and running through the rest of the pack real quick. Notre Dame, Link Jarrett left, and they've kind of fallen off since. Notre Dame's got good pitching; they can't hit, so I think they're a team you look to bet some unders. I might go down there and check out a series. When one of these top teams comes to Notre Dame, I'm only an hour and a half away. I might sneak over to South Bend.
There you go.
Virginia or somebody top good is here.
Honestly, not North Carolina, Notre Dame has historically been a pretty good hitting school. They've got guys that can mash this year, so we'll see. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to finish very high up in the ACC or anything, but that could be another team that maybe the overs on that one.
Next year, we're talking about the blue blood program, but I don't know what the hell is going on with the University of Miami right now, because Miami's always been one of the best programs in college baseball. And, obviously they hosted the regional. Ole Miss went there and won that thrilling game, the second Ole Miss win in 2022. But like, this is a really young roster. They have one super, super stud in Cuvat, who's a first team preseason All-American, Daniel Cuvat. But the rest of this team is like all newcomers, all recruits, all transfers. It's just kind of weird to me because Miami, you always think one of the best teams, but it looks like a rebuilding mode.
Yeah, it seems like after that 2022 season, they've kind of just they're starting to go on a little bit of a downtrend. I think they're losing a lot of guys to Florida and Florida State. This is a program that is historically good. Like you would think they'd be up there in the top in the ACC, but for some reason they just haven't been able to. I don't know why, but
yeah, I know it's kind of weird to me because there's so much talent down that South Florida area.
Yeah.
Last of the pack, Cal. Can't believe they're in the ACC. They've got a really good second baseman and shortstop combo, and PJ Motsaratis killed it, and Jared Advincula. Yeah, nailed it. But the strength of their team is apparently up the middle. I don't know if they can pitch. They lost 2 top 4 round picks in the draft. They got to travel a lot. Somebody's got to lose in the damn league.
That's I mean, no, I don't really think people are looking at Cal to think, Cal baseball.
Same thing with Boston College. They small. They're kind of a grinded out. Like they play small ball, try to eke out wins. Don't have a ton of talent. Don't have much more to say about them. And then the other teams in the ACC, I believe actually that's it. Who do you got as your player of the year in the ACC?
Drew Burris is going to be unbelievable this year.
I'm gonna go Drew Burris.
Yeah, if he does anything like he did last year, he's a stud.
I was between him and Jamie Arnold at Florida State. But I'm going to go Burris.
Yeah.
And then you and I, we both have Virginia winning this league.
Yeah.
And if you had a sleeper in this league, who would you pick?
I would say maybe don't sleep on. I mean, if I choose anybody in the top 5, it wouldn't be that much of a sleeper. I guess you could try to go with maybe Duke if they can find a way to get a pitching rotation going, because they're gonna mash. But like, this is where I say that it's very top heavy. I don't know how much sleepers there's really going to be besides unless you throw Clemson as a sleeper, but I don't think they're really a sleeper.
I'm going to go Louisville just because they feel really good about their 1, 2, 3 and that pitching staff, and I believe in Dan McDonald. And they weren't even that bad last year; they just barely missed the tournament. And if that Indiana State kid's their number 3, who was the pitcher of the year in that league, then maybe their starting rotation can kind of carry them, and maybe they end up around right where NC State, and maybe they can end up ahead of NC State and Wake, some of those teams. But that's our ACC preview. Please like and subscribe to the Wake Up Mintzy YouTube page. It's Peyton Chatagnier. I'm Barstool Mintzy, and we're going to be banging out the Big 12 preview next. And Viva College Baseball, baby! We're doing.
Let's go.